How do you guys think about competition? Do you think there are winner-take-all dynamics in this market? Do you feel like, oh my God, now we're really out there. We're competing with everyone. It's going to get a lot harder. Or do you feel like the market is just growing so fast it gets easier and you can ride it?
I personally think that competition is a really good thing in this industry because competition mandates that every participant must innovate if they want to survive. And so while we might be the largest right now, I've got a ton of respect for Melissa and Backview and what they've built. I think that there's a lot of really smart people in this industry building really cool things. But for us, from day one, we built our own technology stack. That was a very conscious decision of ours. But as I mentioned already, it's like we must continue to innovate to make sure that our solutions are market leading and that our solutions give our clients a competitive advantage if we want the advantages that we have been fortunate to develop to be durable advantages and be things that exist in the long run. And so, I think that impetus for innovation is really good and stimulated by competition. I don't necessarily think that this is a winner take all game, but I do expect that there's consolidation within the industry as we look forward, right? It's like there will likely become industry standard solutions, and I think that there will be some natural consolidation that happens. But in general, it's like competition is not something that I spend too much time worrying about, or our team spends too much time worrying about. We try to focus on making sure that we're innovating based off of, again, what those current need sets are and what we expect the next perceived need sets to be for our clients.
Welcome back to Generation Influence, a podcast focused on the movers and shakers working behind the scenes, driving change and innovation in e-commerce and influencer marketing. I'm your host, Bill Hildebolt, one of the founders of gen.video, an influencer marketing platform focused on e-commerce outcomes and advanced analytics. Today's guest is really exciting. It's the only person to have been named by two of our previous guests as one of their chief career inspirations. And he is Alex McCord. Alex is another one of the people like Melissa Burdick that I got to know running around Seattle in the teens, helping mutual clients succeed on Amazon. And I should clarify, I mean the 20 teens, not my teens, or maybe it was Alex teens. I don't know. He's as you can tell, he's like a very youthful looking guy. So he may have been in his teens. I definitely was not. At the time, Alex was at Compass Marketing, but has risen far and fast in the meantime, and today is the president of enterprise at Flywheel. And that brings up another reason why this podcast is so exciting. As Alex and I are speaking today, Flywheel is the subject of the biggest news in e-commerce this week, specifically a proposed, not closed, but proposed acquisition by Omnicom for $835 million, which would be the biggest acquisition in Omnicom's history. So think about that. That just goes to show all of the exciting innovation that is occurring in retail media and e-commerce generally, and very specifically at Flywheel and how they are the leader in that space. But first, let's start with the origin story. Alex, when you pause to think, how did I get here? What's your answer?
Yeah, thanks, Bill. And thanks for having me on. Always appreciate talking to you and the team. I think, for me, I took a leap 14 years ago. I met Patrick Miller and Chip DiPaula, who were the co-founders of the legacy Flywheel business. And at the time, they were just getting started in digital commerce, and they were just getting started helping brands win well before, the digital commerce that we see today in 2023. And so I had the pleasure of meeting them and starting working with them, and was the first employee of their firm in the digital commerce department back in the day. And it was many long nights of just kind of sitting around with Patrick and ideating and figuring out, hey, if we do this, what happens? If we push this, what happens? And the stakes were so low at the time because e-commerce was so nascent for so many large brands that we were able to build a big brand portfolio where we could really test and learn a lot. And so I was not classically trained in digital commerce. I don't think that existed at the time. Patrick was not classically trained in digital commerce, but we were afforded a long runway to kind of keep testing and learning things. And we were able to build a really cool business. And we built that first business together. And then Patrick and Chip started Flywheel. And I was fortunate enough to rejoin them at Flywheel in 2016 as employee number 11. And we've now scaled that up both organically and inorganically to now over 2,300 colleagues. And so it's been a wild solid journey, but the origin story for me is just that I was very fortunate to meet these guys, took a bet on them, they took a bet on me, and we've had a really fruitful relationship ever since.
That's great. That's one of those stories that people hear and they're like, man, that's the kind of thing I dream about in my career.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so heady, right? There's so much adrenaline, so much excitement when you find yourself in a situation like that, that I feel like it's like this endorphin rush that you want to repeat over and over. So we're going to come back to that toward the end of the show, because I think it is inarguably a great story. And I'm sort of curious about what's played out in the meantime, which to me is equally inspiring. And we're going to want to get your take on that. So stay tuned, everybody. You're going to want to hear that toward the end of the show here. Along with, obviously, we'll come back and we'll talk for a second, at least, about the Omnicom acquisition. But at this point, because we've got so much exciting stuff at the end, I'm going to pull forward a question that I think most people might think, oh, that's one of those ones that feels like it should have been at the end of the show. But I want to start here because I think it will help set up who you are with the audience. And so obviously, as the president of Enterprise, people can imagine, and I have definitely experienced as we work to schedule this, you travel a lot, right? You're all over the globe. And if I had to guess, it seems like it's about 50% of the time, which is, massive in the post-pandemic world. But you also run marathons, and you're actually on your 10th marathon, which also requires massive amounts of training. I mean, you can't squeeze this in 30 minutes, before work starts every day on a treadmill. You got to get outside and you got to put in time. It's just difficult to do a 10-mile training run in a strange town, right? Even if you're going to do it, you got to map it out ahead of time. So, and oh, by the way, you've got a family, which presumably is going well. Yep. So, here's the kicker. Other people I've talked to at Flywheel describe you literally as the most accessible person in the firm, active in all the group Slacks, working on building culture, putting aside time for one-on-ones. That's amazing. How the heck do you do it all? And don't just tell me you prioritize. You're doing intentional things that we can all learn from. How does it come together? What is some of the secret sauce there?
Sure. Yeah, I think for me, it's clear I have what we could be called an addictive personality, and I like to be all in on whatever I'm doing. And my running story, I'm about to run the New York Marathon this weekend as we record, that story is that I couldn't run a mile in July of 2019, and then started running with folks at work, and then last year ran 7 marathons, and so I just kind of jump all the way in. And I wouldn't say the travel definitely disrupts the training plans, but if there's something that's important to me, I try to make time to work it into my life. And I think tying it back to the business side of things, as the leader of the business, I still want to be a practitioner. Flywheel is very proudly a practitioner house, meaning like we don't have strategists. Like every single person at the company, up into myself and up into Patrick Miller, like we roll up our sleeves and we want to understand what's going on. I want to understand the nuances of what it's like in the trenches dealing with clients, and what it's like dealing with Amazon and other retailers, and what's going on with our product. And for me, that hyper connectivity is part of what makes me successful. And if that means that I have to put more time into my work week to make sure that I can balance out those bigger strategic activities and initiatives that we have to push forward while still having a pulse on the trench work, to me, it's worth it. And I'm very fortunate that, I've been in this industry for around 14 years at this point. But I've never once had a day where I'm looking at my watch saying, oh man, when is it going to be 5 o'clock? Like I genuinely love what I do. And so it's very easy for me to be all in. And I know that that's not the case for most people, but I have really found that beautiful mixture of something that I think I'm good at, and something that I derive a significant amount of joy from. And so the longer hours don't necessarily bother me in the way they do if you're not fulfilled in your career.
You said a couple things there that I love. One thing that I definitely agree with at the end, that you think you're good at what you do and you love it. And that just echoes what I think is the most powerful career lesson I've ever heard, which is Scott Galloway, who talks about don't follow your passions, right? He's got this famous YouTube. Yeah. And actually there's multiple versions of it where he gives virtually the same speech in front of multiple different audiences, typically students. Don't follow your passions, find what you're good at and become passionate about that. And that is something that I preach to, a lot of our junior employees, and you are definitely echoing that. And that does make time open up when you love what you do. and you're good at it, it definitely is a huge productivity boost. The other thing you said that, it's funny, I haven't actually heard other people talk about this as much, but it's something I have definitely applied. I don't know that I've applied it as successfully as you have, but I totally agree with, which is be a practitioner, right? Mm-hmm. How can you manage people to do things that you don't know how to do? Right. Totally. There is, and it's, it's one of the reasons why, like for me, I've managed our dev team from time to time. I find that incredibly difficult because I don't actually know what they're doing. I can't code. And I find that to be a huge management challenge. So even back to my days in banking, it was like I would never ask an analyst or an associate to do some modeling exercise that I didn't fully understand and I couldn't do in my sleep. And I do think that opens up huge opportunities because you can even see where the waste is. You can see when people are doing it wrong. You can see when they're not efficient at it, and you can help them along. And so I love that. So those are some great tools for the audience to use. Appreciate you sharing that.
Sometimes drive my teams crazy. It's like I'm a non-technical leader, right? And so I am very deferential to my technical leaders for product and engineering. But on the client services side, like I joke with my leaders all the time where I'm like, the very best account manager that we have here is me. Like I can still do this at a very high level, but I think it's important for me to be sharp because it's like, how am I going to expect that our team uses our tools and they can drive the results that they're looking for if I don't know how to use our tools? And so for me, it's just like such a core part of the DNA of the company, and something that I think has helped us to be successful is like that's something that I believe in deeply, but I do genuinely believe all of our leaders feel that way, and that practitioner mindset is to me a critical part of scale and something that especially when you're in a startup environment you need to have.
Yeah, no, I love that. All right, let's go back up another level. Personally, I think of Flywheel as the original e-commerce analytics firm. That's where my head goes. And again, this is, back to talking to Patrick again over 10 years ago. We were both vendors at P&G doing very different things, but where we needed to interact, pretty regularly. And so that's the piece that's, locked in because we would execute a tactic, in the user generated content or influencer marketing space. They would analyze the results, but you guys are so much more than that. And so, how do you all define yourselves? Maybe one lens to help us with what doesn't Flywheel do for clients with respect to e-commerce?
Yeah, Bill, I think, what we like to say is that everyone thinks of us as a retail media house, and that is fair, right? We buy more retail media than anybody else by a pretty wide margin, right? But we're not a media agency. Like we're a retail agency that happens to buy a lot of media. And we have built this business, and we also like to say it's like retail media is wonderful because it helps drive more sales. But our objective is to help brands drive more sales. And if there's any sort of workflow that will help them drive more sales, we'll do it. We also joke it's like if walking into the street and dancing around in the rain would help clients sell more product, we would start to get really good at walking around in the street and dancing in the rain because it would help our clients sell more product. And so over the years, while kind of public-facing retail media might be the calling card, there's a ton of business lines behind the scenes that help brands win. And so what we try to do is we try to identify what are our brands' pain points right now, and where do we predict the puck is going, and what their pain points might be in the future. And because we have such a significant scale, can we develop a process? Can we deploy a team? Can we create a product or a technology that helps make that pain point go away? And over time, that's created this wonderful vertical integration for us. And so, any area of the value chain that a brand might need to win in digital commerce, we have a solution for it, whether that's supply chain, consulting, retail services, creative services, retail media. We can do really anything. I used to answer this question and say, Flywheel will do anything except for actually hold your inventory. But we actually now have a vertically integrated 3PL solution as well. And so that's no longer true. And so our mission is, I guess another way to think about it is like what we do right now and what we did 2 years ago is massively different. And what we did 2 years before that was massively different. And so the only thing that's consistent in our business is that we will continue to change and evolve based off of the evolving needs of our clients. And I think we've done a good job at continuing to evolve our business model over time. But there really isn't much of a workflow that exists out there that Flywheel doesn't get involved in. If it's a pain point for a brand, we want to help them solve it. And again, we'll deploy a team, a technology, or a person to go help them with that.
Super helpful. I totally get that. It's interesting. When I was out myself running this morning, I was thinking about this conversation, and I was thinking, it's interesting because, again, I think there is this real core around analytics, and Patrick is an inveterate numbers guy, and obviously based on even this part of our conversation, clearly you're a numbers guy as well. And so it's pretty clear to me it evolved quickly from here's the answer from the things you are doing to let us help you do those things to drive those numbers, which then became very much the North Star of drive sales. And so it's interesting because I've known you guys for so long. I don't think of you as a retail media firm, despite the fact that you're the largest buyer of retail media. Like, that is not the box that I put you in my head. I totally understand why it makes sense in the communications today. Again, this podcast, one of the top themes of the podcast for the past year has been, look, retail media is the hottest, most important thing that people need to pay attention to and understand. So if clients are looking for that solution, yes, we are that thing that can solve that pain point, but you've never defined yourselves like that's not your North Star. The North Star is how can we drive more sales? And therefore, because you don't define yourselves as a retail media firm, if that was not the number one thing that was going to continue to drive additional sales, you would shift, as you have done many times. And so I feel like we've unpacked maybe a secret to the success of the firm, which is awesome. All right, so let's twist this around into a question,
Sure.
Which is, all right, so Flywheel is the incumbent in the space, is the largest retail media firm, but now you've got all this activity, right? We're moving beyond Amazon. We've got Walmart, we've got Rondell, but we've also got all these additional competitors and solutions in retail media. And again, I've talked to 3 firms this week are like, we are a retail media firm. And I'm like, well, that's not actually how I think of you, but okay, let's go with that. So suddenly there's all this competition. You even got like Perpetua, which now you're technically going to be partners within the Omnicom family. Then you've got PackView, right? Run by our mutual friend, Melissa. So how do you guys think about competition? Do you think there are winner-take-all dynamics in this market? Do you feel like, oh my God, now we're really out there. We're competing with everyone. It's going to get a lot harder. Or do you feel like the market is just growing so fast it gets easier and you can ride it?
Sure. Yeah, Bill, I personally think that competition is a really good thing in this industry because competition mandates that every participant must innovate if they want to survive. And so while we might be the largest right now, I've got a ton of respect for Melissa and PackView and what they've built. I think that there's a lot of really smart people in this industry building really cool things. But for us, from day one, we built our own technology stack. That was a very conscious decision of ours. But as I mentioned already, it's like we must continue to innovate to make sure that our solutions are market leading and that our solutions give our clients a competitive advantage if we want the advantages that we have been fortunate to develop to be durable advantages and be things that exist in the long run. And so, I think that like impetus for innovation is really good and stimulated by competition. I don't necessarily think that this is a winner-take-all game, but I do expect that there's consolidation within the industry as we look forward, right? It's like there will likely become industry standard solutions, and I think that there will be some natural consolidation that happens. But in general, it's like competition is not something that I spend too much time worrying about or our team spends too much time worrying about. We try to focus on making sure that we're innovating based off of, again, what those current need sets are and what we expect the next perceived need sets to be for our clients.
Down the same theme with the explosion of retail media, what we're starting to see is everyone's kind of saying the same things about the space. And so there's this sea of sameness that's kind of out there. Again, I think you guys are defined by, your length of service and the breadth of services that you wrap around it. But are there areas of retail media, if we want to stick specifically to that segment, where you're a contrarian, or you at least think the clients and or the market don't really understand some of the key dynamics and where it's headed?
Sure. Yeah, I think for me, one of the big things right now is that it seems like everybody's scrambling to create new metrics to measure success in retail media. And I think that obviously creates great engagement on LinkedIn. And like, I don't behoove anyone that wants to operate that way. But I don't really personally think that that's super customer obsessed. I think that's a lot more competition obsessed of like, how do I invent a metric that's going to entice somebody to switch providers? But I really do think that's kind of the wrong approach for brands. And so you don't see Flywheel really focused on like the new way to say ACoS or the new way to say ROAS. Like that's not really the game that we're in. We want to be incredibly first principles driven here. And so we want to focus on how do you put the next dollar in the right place to drive the longest long-term customer value for your clients, and then how do you customize your approach both based off of what the item is that you're trying to sell and how your customers are shopping for it. And so for me, there's like, this is perhaps too philosophical, but like I think there's like a meaningful fragmentation of measurement versus the white whale of this new perfect invented metric, because if those metrics are not uniformly adopted, I just don't think that that's really what we should be chasing. And so I guess to your point of like, where are we contrarian? Like to me, I think that's an area that we're a bit contrarian versus the rest of the market right now.
I certainly agree with that, because there is no faster way to confuse a client than to try to come up with a new acronym. You spend half your time trying to explain what it means, and then you spend the other half of your time trying to convince them that you're not trying to pull the wool over their eyes with something that's so confusing that, that they can't get it. So sticking to, as you say, the core fundamentals makes all the sense in the world to me. As we go even maybe a little bit deeper, a little bit more tactical into this area, what do you think the percent of retail media is today is going to search, right? And so maybe we work from the assumption that years ago it was, I'm going to guess 90%. You feel free to disagree with even that number, but that's my perception of what it was at least 3, 4, 5 years ago. Where is it today, and where do you think it bottoms out or settles into a steady state?
Sure. Yeah. Brands are so different that it's like I would struggle to give you a number that's a goalpost, because I don't know if that number would be all that meaningful, because it's super dependent based off what the brand is, the objectives are, the category of that brand. But if I zoom out a little bit, like around just the general concept of what percentage of search is retail media, I think that even gets into like this more existential question of like, what is retail media? And is the same 300 by 250 on the New York Times, is that retail media if you buy it using Amazon DSP instead of buy it using Google? We're not sure. And so for us, when we're talking internally, we try to suggest the name closed loop media instead, which is to say that it's media that can be optimized across various customer touchpoints and media that can be deterministically measured. And so I think, again, slightly professorial, but like taking that step back is really important for us, because we want to make sure that we're shifting dollars to the place where you can actually tell if those dollars work. And so I don't necessarily think of this as like the bottoming out of retail media, but more the opposite. It's an unlock of addressable inventory with never before possible measurement opportunities. And so again, slightly professorial, but like if you look at the acquisitions and the hires over the last 5 years in this industry, it looks like publishers and platforms believe the same thing. And so I don't have a very eloquent answer for you in terms of what that actual percent looks like, but I do think definitionally that's my kind of read on where we're at and where the industry is going.
Do you ever find clients, I think, one thing about addressable media, right, and having more data and more visibility into success metrics, there can be trepidation, right? Because what we know for sure is not all media works all the time. And so sometimes the more data you have, the harder it is to justify what you're doing when you're like, no, it feels good, right? It's a historical justification for a lot of media, or it's really beautiful and it won an award at Cannes, owned by Ascential. So I feel confident you guys have bravely gone directly into the teeth of that. Like, this is the only way through, which honestly, in some ways as a vendor can be scary, but there's truth into the only way is through. And this is going to lead us to a better tomorrow, even if there's pain. Do you ever find clients resisting that though? Are they ever like, yeah, I don't know if I want to know all the answers to this stuff?
Yes and no. I would say occasionally, sure. But I think most brands want to understand how is my money being spent and how do I spend this money efficiently, right? At times you run into that when you see, retailer specific JBPs or something where the money needs to get spent either way. But the vast majority of the time, I think any marketer would say they want to understand, is the dollar that they're spending actually driving the return that they would like it to? And I think that that question is kind of, that's the $1 billion question within the industry. But why I think this space is also so exciting, because it's so much easier to directly correlate what you're doing directly to sales. And then when we talk about clean rooms and we talk about the advent of AMC and the potential for new clean rooms, I think this is going to get even stronger. And I think that this is a really exciting space for marketers, because as retailers open up clean rooms, we're going to be able to really understand things like the lifetime value of a customer and true customer behavior insights, while also getting that full direct purchase data, which is, I think, going to really switch how brands and how manufacturers think about retail media and the position of it. And it's already this incredible third wave of digital advertising, but I think clean rooms will really unlock that next step.
You just mentioned it, so let's go there. AMC, the Amazon Marketing Cloud. I think it's fair to say, tell me if I'm overhyping, AMC might be the cornerstone of the next big round of changes that we're going to see in the industry, based on the opportunity to understand and optimize e-commerce ops. For sure, it's the final nail in the coffin of a long evolution from where Amazon was very close to the vest with data to now essentially throwing the doors wide open, which is going to force everyone else to do something like that, to share more over time. Can you give us a case study today? I think, but the challenge is it's so new.
Sure.
I don't think a lot of us, and I'll put myself in this camp, truly understand the potential of what can be done. And so can you give us a case study where you've leveraged AMC to do more? Obviously blind the client, but tell us what the success looked like and the tactics that you guys employed.
Yeah, of course. So Bill, AMC is a huge pillar of where our focus is. It's probably our biggest strategic bet within the entire company right now. About 8 months ago or so, we actually brought on Kirat Sharma, who built AMC at Amazon. He now sits with our team. We've now got fully dedicated teams under him and over 300 people that are certified in AMC. So we're betting really big on this. We believe this is the future. But when I think about AMC, I want to reframe it a little bit, which is to us, AMC is the future of dynamic and personalized ad experiences for customers. Right now, everything looks like a nail, right? And what I mean by that is most of AMC's features are report-driven capabilities, and that's cool, and that's a good first step. But what's the so what there? And so the most compelling use case that we've seen today has been within building custom audiences within AMC. We've spent millions to date on custom built audiences. And when we've leveraged our custom based audiences that we define ourselves versus using what's pre-built within the Amazon DSP, we've seen over a 16% increase in conversion rate across our entire book of DSP business, which is a significantly large book. And so for me, the key unlock with AMC is tying the insights that you can get back to actions so that you can better optimize your ads. And so we're really bullish on AMC. We only expect that there's going to be more customizability, more signal, more interoperability, and ultimately more actions that will allow each dollar that we spend on behalf of our clients to be spent more efficiently and measured more holistically. And so I think that the case study for me is just the custom audience piece and that 16% increase in conversion rate. But we're really excited about the future of where AMC is going. And I think that it's going to make the investments that our clients are spending into Amazon go significantly better, faster, stronger. And our hope and our expectation is that other retailers open up clean rooms as well. And we kind of move into the age of clean rooms within retail media, which we are expecting and hoping to be the next phase.
Thank you. That was awesome. I love the way you framed up sort of input or reality today, better reporting into what's the outcome, better ads, more personalization, which obviously an unstoppable trend and one that has massive impact. So that was huge. All right. So the parts the audience has been patiently waiting for, the thing that we have to touch. And I know how this is probably going to go, given that the acquisition is not closed yet. But tell us what you can about how it all came together and why this made sense for Flywheel, even maybe just not specifically Omnicom, but even why you'd be open to thinking about having a different parent, which we'll also talk about, because you guys do have a parent today in Ascential. So why did it make sense to have a new parent? And what do you think it was that Omnicom was looking for in coming after you guys and making their biggest bet in the history of the company?
Yeah. Thanks, Bill. Obviously, this is really exciting news. It's news that I'm personally very excited about. But beyond the main facts that are already public, I'm not able to comment on the details because the deal still does need to get approved by our shareholders. But yes, to confirm, the board is recommending the acquisition of Flywheel by Omnicom. And for me, very high level, it's like I think that that's a testament to the high quality and the huge potential of the Flywheel business. And it's also a recognition that retail media is mainstream and it's a must-win battleground. And I also believe that it's a recognition that Flywheel is the clear leader in this space. And so I'm super excited. I'm sorry I can't go into much more detail right now. But if the deal does close, would love to reconnect in Q1 and talk about it.
Absolutely. I mean, it's funny you said that because I was going to say, I mean, look, for me, it just means you got to come back and be a guest on the podcast again. So all good with me. And I'm sure the audience will come back to watch that episode as well. So, well, I want to touch on something, again, that I'm going to come back to this point that actually Flywheel has already been part of Ascential, which is known as basically a trade and events company historically. And it itself made another huge bet or a similar huge bet on Flywheel, several years ago, which is interesting in of itself. And I definitely want to hear about that. But the part that for me is so unique and so inspirational, you just don't see this, is that maybe even you can flesh out the specifics, but as I understand it, basically the founders and the leaders like yourself of Flywheel at the time of the Ascential acquisition have, I think, 100% or at least like 95% stuck with Ascential post-acquisition and are still there today. And presumably the assumption, and there's obviously a lot of evidence that this will pan out, this is always in the press release, and then the reality is everybody's gone 3 months later.
Sure.
That is not what happened in the Ascential acquisition. So something here fundamentally different. And I'm sure, again, it goes down to, who you and Patrick and everybody else is. But can you just talk about that? How can another acquirer, if there's somebody in the audience who does have like that strategic mandate, what do you do in an acquisition to get everybody who created the magic to stick around to the point where even when the next acquisition occurs, it seems likely that they'll stick around again and go for round 3? How does that happen?
Yeah. Look, I think Ascential had the foresight that commerce was going to evolve, right? And away from chain concentrated commerce and into commerce that's driven by large digital commerce marketplaces. Initially, there was a white paper back in, I think it was 2015, called Retail 5.0 that our legacy company Edge actually produced. And so that white paper kind of outlined this. And the short version is that Ascential was right. And they started to deploy capital to acquire specialist companies that were industry leaders within each of the specific digital commerce focus areas to prepare themselves for this transformative shift in commerce. And so Flywheel, the brand that I came up through, the old Flywheel, was one of the earlier acquisitions done in 2018, which got Ascential into the execution space, so media execution, retail execution, as opposed to just measurement alone, which is where they were before. And I think the reason that you see people stay is just that post that acquisition, Ascential's been an outstanding partner. They've allowed Flywheel to be Flywheel. They've not mandated how we run the business. And they've continued to invest both in our business so that we can build solutions and deploying capital for other M&A to build the aggregate solution set here, which is now what you see as the unified Flywheel today, which is incorporating all 11 brands that were formerly in our digital commerce business unit. And so that level of like support where you need it, hands off where you don't, has led myself, the co-founders of Flywheel, and the vast majority of our leadership team to stay around. For me, in most of my daily workflows, I'm working with like Flywheel employee number 4 and Flywheel employee number 10 and Flywheel employee number 12. Like we're all still here. And that to me is really cool because it's both great to work with those people over such an extended period of time and be on that journey together. But it also shows the faith that everybody has in the company as it currently stands. And so, I can't speak for other people and what might motivate them. But for me, I just want to see how high this rocket can go, right? I took a big bet to jump into this industry when it was quite nascent. And we've been very fortunate to build a successful business. And from here, I want to see how big can Flywheel be? And can I build a company? And can we as a leadership team build a company that like my grandchildren could work at if they want to work at? Like that's perhaps too audacious of a goal, but like I think we've been very fortunate, and it wasn't without a lot of hard work to get to this point. But I want to build a durable company that's going to be around forever. And so the motivations of other people might be slightly different, but for me personally, like I want to continue on this journey, and I'm thrilled to be able to continue on this journey with many of the same people that built the company into what it is today.
I find those principles obviously highly laudable. Like the idea of building a durable company is something I'm passionate about. And again, I've had just enough exposure to the kind of the venture world where, to be honest, like there are a lot of times where I get very dispirited about what I see as the flip it kind of mentality, and we're just going to build this business the way the VCs want us to build it because the whole point is to exit as fast as we can and as high a multiple of revenue as humanly possible. And I understand the idea of building shareholder value, but yes, similarly, like I want to have something where I can point to my kids, my grandkids, and say, this is something I helped build and it still exists today and it still has an impact. So I love that principle, but massive kudos to Ascential. I just the balance of, providing the support, having had this brilliantly correct thesis, which is much easier said than done, and then having the ability, the analogy that comes to mind is, holding the bird in your hand so lovingly, yet not, squeezing it to death. So, letting it thrive. That is a tough balance to pull off. And so again, all credit to Ascential and to all of you for powering through what I know was a lot of hard work and challenges. But, well, this has been amazing. Alex, thank you so much for being on the show. I don't know, any last words you want to share with the audience?
No, look, thank you for tuning in. If you're tuning in, and Bill, thank you for having me. Really appreciate the invite to come on, and would love to reconnect again on the show sometime in Q1.
Absolutely. That would be great. We'd love to hear how it's going. Well, thank you, Alex. Thanks everybody else for tuning in. Have a great week, and we will see you next time on Generation Influence. Thanks. Hey, thanks for tuning in. New episodes of Generation Influence drop every Wednesday, so be sure to check us out and subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts. You can find information on next week's guest in the description below. Hope to see you then and there.